Hello, friends from Five Reasons. We are live now. We were waiting for some minutes, and Ethan will be here in a couple of seconds too. Today, we're gonna start doing this thing. It's a live commentary of the Miami Heat game as it is being played. So that's a new concept that we're trying to start here at Five Reasons. Today, there's playing a scrimmage against the Sacramento Kings. It's just a game, a friendly game before the beginning of the season, and I wanted to invite you guys to join us every time the Miami Heat plays. We're gonna try to get with you guys and try to do this live commentary of the game, and you guys can comment on it, on whatever's going on. The Heat's it's winning the game. The last time I saw it was 21-10 with a couple of minutes to go in the first quarter. We have Ethan Skolnick who's ready. We have some comments here already. Is this game live, Raymond? It is live right now on Fox Sports Sun. Tavares Brown ready to see KZ. Okay, cool. Thanks. Friends of Five or Friends of Five saying that it's gonna start. And let's invite right away Ethan Skolnick. Ethan, how are you? The Miami Heat's finally back. It's finally playing. We are happy.
Yep.
I know you're not much of a baseball fan. I've been watching baseball the last couple of days, but this is for you.
I've been watching.
Basketball is back in
No, no,
town.
no,
The
no.
NBA is back, and the Miami Heat is back. How are you? How do you feel?
I'm good. I mean, I watched the Marlins blow an 8-1 lead yesterday, so I
They
sat through
did.
that.
It's all your fault.
I mean, I want to watch something. As we're doing that, I mean, I can't give too much play-by-play here, except that you don't want to give the baseline to Andre Iguodala and let him dunk. Right now it's the Heat are up 10, and we're gonna, like you mentioned, I was listening when I came on. We're gonna try to do this, pretty consistently and get a lot of our personalities from Five Reasons to kind of pop onto these shows. We're also gonna do an episode of Five on the Floor. I think Greg Sylvander, Alf Sidney, and Alex Toledo are going to join me after the game. But we're going to start to try to do some more live stuff here. Obviously, we're not at the games like we had been during the season where we had three of us at all the home games, sometimes four of us. But I am going to be going to Orlando as what's called Tier 2 media starting August 2nd. So I'm going to get up there for their games against Toronto and Boston. Those are their second and third regular season games after the Denver game. So we will have some coverage on site, but obviously things are different. I'm not going to be able to talk to the players there because I'm not living in the bubble, but we're trying to present to you guys the Zoom calls on our YouTube channel. So when we get access to that stuff, and the Heat have been making Eric Spoelstra and two players available, and they're actually doing that after the game again tonight. Just want to give some impressions of what we've seen so far. I mean, right now the Heat are up 8 late in the first quarter. I have been saying consistently on Five on the Floor that the teams that are going to benefit from this break are the teams that have a combination of youth and veterans, because you need strong leadership with your vets. The Heat have that with Haslam, with Butler, with Dragic, with Iguodala, and also have young legs because young players take less time to get back into shape. If you talk to veterans, as Tyler Hero looks great, by the way, he just drove to the basket for a layup, so he's looked good since he's come in the game. When you talk to vets, Alejandro, they'll always tell you, they'll say, even in a regular season, it takes them till about December to kind of work off the rust. They kind of use the first month of the season to get back in shape. So you don't want too many vets. So having 6 players in your rotation that are 26 or under, like the Heat do, is really going to benefit them, I think. And then to have the leadership. So I think those things are important. I think having a quote unquote culture, I'll say it, in the organization is
get on
important.
it. Get on that
Get on it because
bandwagon.
there are some teams like Philadelphia that don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think what you're really going to see here is the really good coaches are going to be appreciated, because this is a new circumstance where you didn't know how guys were going to come back in terms of their shape. You don't know if everybody's focusing on basketball, everything else you're dealing with, and you're going to have to put these pieces together. And having a stable coaching staff and somebody like Eric Spoelstra who's coached these different kinds of teams, I think is really going to help Miami. I think the way they were trending when the season, quote unquote, ended or was suspended was the way where I thought they were going to get bounced in the first round. But I think the break has brought Milwaukee back to the pack a little bit. I think we've seen that with Oladipo's situation in Indiana is up in the air. I don't know that the break benefited Philadelphia. I really think it benefited Miami. I think they were trending the wrong way. And I think just getting their young players to get a breather, Jimmy Butler to get some rest, and to refocus on basketball after the trades were made, I think this is beneficial, and I think you're seeing some good things tonight. Again, we can't really give play-by-play here, but the Heat opened by making 7 of their first 8 threes, and what you saw there was the ball movement that you saw in December that had kind of gone away a little bit by the time you got to March, and Duncan Robinson had 4 of those threes. So the only other major thing I would take as we're watching this is, Spoelstra decided to start Dragic and Derek Jones Jr. tonight.
Mm-hmm.
With Bam and Nunn still not available. They have to quarantine for 48 hours and pass a couple tests, and then they'll be back. But I think that the Dragic move was kind of obvious because he wants to get him some reps in the first half and get him out. I do think Dragic is still going to be their 6th man when Nunn comes back. The DJJ move to me is interesting, Alejandro, because when we were talking to Alex and these guys on the pod yesterday, Derek Jones Jr. looks to be their 11th man right now. And he's going to be fighting for minutes with Jay Crowder and with Andre Iguodala. And he's one of the guys, especially with his contract coming up, I'm watching to see how Spoelstra uses him. And he decided to use him as a starter tonight. So I think Greg Sylvander is going to be joining us here too.
Okay.
But I don't know what thoughts you had so far.
Yeah. I heard you guys because I listened to the podcast this morning while I was driving to my job.
Very
And you
good.
guys were having this debate about who was going to start and if some of the players were going to have some minutes. You even mentioned some players that haven't even played this season for the Miami Heat. And you guys talked, and the players also talked a lot about defense. They were trying to sharpen their defense, trying to get that and focus a lot on that. Have you seen a better defense in this first half? Is it at? I mean, it's against the Kings. It's not the best
Right.
team you can face, but I mean, it's somebody else other than you. You're not playing your teammates. You're playing somebody else, so you can see a little bit different.
Yeah, well, it's also the Kings without De'Aaron Fox and without Marvin Bagley, so who's going to be out for the rest of this tenure. So, I mean, they're shorthanded, but I mean, Hield is a very good shooter. Corey Joseph is a capable backup point guard, and Harry Giles is actually a guy that I know the Heat like a lot, who they may look at this offseason. So there are some players. I think defensively, what you just want to see now is the activity. I don't know until Spoelstra gets to the rotation he wants to get to if we're going to see the improvement that everybody's looking for. But I think you want to see Iguodala, Crowder, Derek Jones Jr., some of their longer, more athletic players on the team, making things more difficult on opponents than was happening before. I think the other thing is, they don't have Kendrick Nunn back yet. They have to improve their defense at the point of attack. That was really the issue. That's where things started to break down. When they started to give up all those threes, it was because they were not controlling the point of attack, and too many point guards were getting. It wasn't so much a point guard scoring, but it was getting in the lane and setting things up for other people. And so until Kendrick Nunn's back, it's hard to really evaluate that because that's not going to be Goran's strength at this point of his career. I want to see improvements from Kendrick there. I think he has the athletic ability to be better than he's been. And I think that needs to be a focus for him because I think we saw from Kendrick what he can provide offensively. He kind of went above the rookie wall, and he scaled it after he sort of ran into it offensively. But defensively, I want to see more activity because if not, then it's going to be difficult for Kendrick to get those late game minutes. They're going to have to go bigger with maybe Jimmy Butler guarding the point guard and having Iguodala or Crowder or somebody else guarding the wings.
Right. And we can say this, the Miami Heat, it's winning after the first period. It's 27-21. So the Miami Heat's winning. We're not going to be doing play-by-plays, just commentaries and exchanging ideas with you guys. So we're going to be reading your comments here. Robert Diaz, will you be staying at Disney property? That's with Ethan. Are you going to stay there with the guys?
Yeah, I can. The way that it works, it's a good question. I mean, everybody's kind of curious. I was curious too. The way that they've done this with the media is they've split us into tier 1 and tier 2. If you're tier 1, you have to stay on the Disney property. You have to be tested every day. It's $600 a day. That includes the accommodations, the food, and the tests, which you have to get every day.
Yeah.
I can't do it because I have a 6-year-old daughter, and people know my situation. I share
Yeah,
custody.
you can take the risk.
I can't take a risk, and I can't come back, quarantine again, come back.
Yeah.
So I did get approved for tier 2, and tier 2 means that I can go to the games, but I don't live on the Disney property. So I just get a hotel down the street, basically can just go to the games, go back to my hotel. and that's the way that it works. I can cover the games. They have a media section. You can't really see it as I'm watching broadcast, but they have a media section that is above this section where they're going to put the tier 2 media. And so the deal there is if you're covering games you have to be tested on Tuesday and Friday, and you have to pay for those tests. They're not cheap either. I've decided that's worth it for me to go up a few times. But the bubble it's challenging. I give credit to Tim Reynolds is up there from Miami, covering for AP nationally. And obviously Sam Amick and Mark Stein, a lot of those writers are there. It's a big commitment. I mean, you're away from your families for, 2-3 months, and you're not getting paid what the players are getting paid to be there. So
yeah,
it's a big commitment. If it didn't have a 6-year-old daughter, I'm a basketball junkie, I probably would have done it, and lived with the cost, but it wasn't going to work in this circumstance.
Okay, we're gonna invite Greg Sylvander, who's also here with us, to share what's going on with the Miami Heat right now. They're winning 29-26 as I'm watching it. And here I had a question. Are you guys watching it? Yes, we're watching it. We just can't really do play-by-play or anything like that, but we can share with you guys and exchange some thoughts during the game. So let's do that with Greg. Greg, how do you like your Miami Heat back so far?
I mean, Duncan Robinson is on fire, so that's always fun. We've talked a lot about, kind of him getting off to a great start and what that would mean. I've thought also, right when Iguodala came in the game, they immediately had him bringing up the ball. I thought that was an interesting moment early on, and just seeing, kind of the guys just getting back on the court is just awesome. It's funny how much I didn't realize that I missed it.
I think that's true for a lot of people. I mean, you mentioned Iguodala. I mean, one thing before we forget, I do want to mention, he just made a corner three. And I think there are certain things with this team that you're watching to see who are the guys who are going to get those minutes. If Andre Iguodala can consistently make corner threes, which was his shot for Golden State, he's going to play a lot. Okay. I think that when you look at Crowder, Iguodala, and DJJ, the guy who makes that shot, okay, that open look, when teams are shading the Heat like you're playing 4-on-5, is going to be the guy who gets those crunch time minutes. We had this conversation on 5 on the Floor last night. I'm just thinking about it. I think that's the shot Eric's looking at, because I think he trusts all three of them defensively for different reasons. DJJ is an on-ball defender, Jay Crowder's strength and versatility, and Iguodala's obviously experience, right? He trusts all three of them. Who's going to make that shot? Because you don't need them to do anything else on offense. Nothing else. They don't want DJJ handling. Can you make that shot? And right now, the other thing I would take away from this is we're now, 13 minutes into the game, Greg, and the Heat don't have a free throw yet. And I think that's something to watch too, because the guys who generated all their free throws this season were Bam and Jimmy. And I saw Jimmy didn't have his wind after about 5 minutes tonight. So he's going to have to build that up. But the offense, as you look at it, what they're doing right now, it is all move the ball on the perimeter, get the open three. They're going to have to find a way to generate some points at the line also.
Yeah, I mean, another guy that can probably help in that regard is Kendrick Nunn. This is, they're living and dying by the three, and obviously they're living so far. But we know that historically, I mean, I guess the Warriors are one of the few outliers, but historically you can't necessarily just bank on threes. So you're right. Like, ultimately they're going to have to find a balance, and they're lucky that a lot of these are going in, and Duncan Robinson is a flamethrower. But at some point you hope that Jimmy kind of finds that groove and starts to, he looked a little bit like he was trying to pick his spots, but when he got the ball, he was rushing a little bit. So it was like a little bit of both ends of that. So eventually he's going to kind of sort himself out. And then him and Bam getting to the line is, kind of it's usually how you would unlock some of this 3-point shooting, but it's just happening organically so far.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you watch Jimmy, and this was a balance we talked about the whole year with him making a decision in games. Is he going to be aggressive to score or just to set other people up? And there's one circumstance he had a break, and it was kind of a 1-on-2 sort of, but it was a play where he probably could have finished, and he tried to flip it behind him. He was making the extra pass and ended up being a giveaway, which, again, with Bam and Jimmy, we just are in a weird position with them as compared to other stars on other teams where you're asking them to be more selfish. I feel like that was a conversation we had the entire season. So that needs to happen. I mean, I understand the tone that he wants to set, and he's working his way into this, but he's not playing in the second half tonight. I also think that putting him with Dragic, I think Eric wanted to create a comfort level at the very start of the game. I would not read into it as Dragic is going to be the starter, even though I've talked a lot about Goran playing more. I really think Kendrick Nunn's going to be worked in back as a starter when he's cleared.
Talking about Bam and Kendrick Nunn, we have a question here from NC Juice. When's Bam Adebayo going to play again?
All right. Well, he reported yesterday. We did the
Ethan's fine. Don't worry.
Allergy, by the way. I have to tell you. Okay, it drives me crazy. It's 48 hours, right? 48 hours and 2 tests?
Yeah, and 2 negative tests. So, I mean, obviously some of it is contingent upon that, but I don't know if we're going to see him in these scrimmage games, honestly. I think that they're going to be a little bit more precautionary in that regard. I could be wrong. Maybe in that last one, as they're just trying to let as many guys get reps as possible, that they find a way to fit them in limited minutes. But I could get surprised. Bam could pop up in the starting lineup all of a sudden. But what do you think, Ethan? You think that they're going to hold him out?
I would be surprised if Bam plays in the scrimmages. I think that I think that, I mean, first thing, you have to see once he gets back on the court with it. I know he's been working out on his own, as has Kendrick, but I think you have to kind of see. I mean, the Heat players have gotten a weak head start on him in terms of running the 5-on-5s, in terms of the physicality, that they started to introduce to the practices. That you can't really replicate. And I think, the other thing to consider here too, remember, there was this concern that Bam and some of the other players had. It's just so weird watching them in these separated seats. It's different.
But Jimmy and Goran are still next to each other.
No, they're always next to each other, so they can talk soccer. That was a beautiful pass by Iguodala, by the way. See, again, I don't want to give too much play-by-play, but, I mean, that look by Iguodala to Kelly Olynyk for that reverse layup is one of the things that Andre Iguodala offers I don't think we totally saw when he came in from the trade. It's just an intelligence that he knows. He's had 4 months to study the Heat system now.
Yeah, and he gets that kind of stuff at a very academic level. Like that's how he processes this. So I think you're totally right. And if he had the ability to add that little bit extra of initiating offense or taking the pressure off ball handlers and things like that, particularly in high stakes playoff games, like I feel like that's another tiebreaker when you talked about whether it be Crowder, DJJ, or Andre, that could get him more minutes too.
Talking about weird, you guys mentioned how weird it was, but you can go ahead and then I can read this comment. Finish the idea.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the one other thing I want to say there on that possession. So you had Andre, Solomon Hill's out there now too, and it was just real short on a 3. But you had Andre and Jay basically switching on the perimeter, making things complicated for the Kings ball handlers. But then one pass was made, and it was Kelly Olynyk on the back line, and so there was an easy lay-in. I think, again, when you have Bam, when you have those kind of perimeter defenders, those sort of long, when they add Bam back to the mix as the backline defender, things are going to look a lot better. That's one of those things where it's like Andre and Jay did everything right, and it was designed to.
The last line of defense wasn't there.
Kelly's not going to protect the rim there. So again, I think until you get Bam, there are a lot of these other pieces defensively that you can't really look at. So I'm really looking more at their offense until Bam is back. The spacing, the ball movement, the unselfishness, the three-point shooting, that's fine. Defensively, Bam is so central to everything that they do that it's going to be hard to evaluate it. So,
okay.
This comes in from Kaz. He thinks he'll get some minutes at the end at the exhibition game. Yeah, the exhibition games, yes, not the scrimmages, right? I think, right? I mean, I think that may be what we look at. So.
We had a message earlier talking about how weird, I mean, from this person, he or she's glad that the NBA is back, and it says it's not as weird as I thought it would be, but it does have a feeling of a summer league feel. Do you guys feel that way coming from the audience instead of being at the arena with nobody else there?
Yeah, it does feel very summer league-ish. It feels more Orlando summer league-ish than Vegas summer league-ish, to be honest. My new puppy's about to learn how loud I can be during basketball games. It does feel more Orlando-ish, and the reason I say that is because in
Because
Vegas
you don't like
they have
Orlando.
What's that?
Because you don't like Orlando. That's the reason
No.
you
I
say that.
actually liked Orlando Summer League better, Alejandro. And the reason was the way they had done before they got rid of it because they moved it all to Utah and Sacramento. But the way they were doing Orlando Summer League was there were no fans.
Correct.
So it was in the small gym. It was in the Orlando Magic's practice gym. And it was just there were media there walking around talking to scouts, talking to executives. But it had this kind of ballroomish like feel.
Yep.
Vegas is different. Vegas is a big
fans.
arena.
Thomas and Mack Center. Yep.
The Thomas and Mack Center. Now, Cox Pavilion next door feels a little more like that, but even that has risers. Thomas and Mack, when the Lakers are playing, and they all come from LA to watch the Lakers, summer league team.
It gets rowdy.
It feels like a big place. So this is different. But I think they've done, like I said, I think the presentation is about as good as it could be. In the end, it's basketball. And I do think that this environment is going to bring out the best in certain guys. Because one of the things we don't talk about is there are a lot of players who are distracted by things as simple as their families.
Mm-hmm.
And now they don't have those distractions. It's just, all the times that they're telling the wife, okay, I need to go put in some extra work, or I need to train, and they're getting, well, I need you to do this around the house, or I need you to pick up the kid. They deal with this stuff too. Now it's like they could actually go do it. There's nobody telling them not to, right?
Yeah, they have nothing else to focus on. I think that
nothing else to focus on. So it's really more about were they telling the truth that they really had to do those things, or were they going off to see the side piece?
No comment, right?
No comment.
Right.
Okay, we have a comment.
There are no side pieces in Orlando right now.
Well, we don't know. We hope not. So they're not going out and doing anything crazy, right? So Sergio Tueldo says, you guys think there's any minutes for Silva in the playoffs, for Chris Silva? You guys were talking about it in the podcast.
Yeah.
In the last podcast we had from 5 on the floor. So what do you guys say to Sergio?
Greg, I don't think so.
No.
So they signed him this year and they're not getting him minutes in the playoffs? Is that what you're saying, Ethan?
I just don't. I look at how many people they have to play, and even though I did say yesterday, I think Eric will go with more bodies. I don't. Chris Silva's role for this team until he hasn't played basketball that long. His role for this team was to change the energy, and I don't know that this team is going to need that
exactly
the way that they needed it in some road games during the season where they were dragging. I think in this environment. And Jimmy, again, just drove to the basket and could have gone up and decided to make an extra pass, and it nearly turned into a turnover. They got it back. I don't think in this environment you're going to need someone to change the
energy.
The energy. I just think they have enough guys. That's a beautiful pass by Jay Crowder, by the way.
Another part of that is that sometimes when your team is reeling on the road and the crowd is really loud, you put in a guy like Silva who does not care about crowd noise. He's literally just going after it,
right?
Because that also changes the energy, and that's just not a factor either. But one thing I want to go back to the in-game experience part of it. I watched some of the earlier games, and maybe I just missed it because I was locked into watching Bowl. But something I've noticed is the Heat are pumping in the let's go Heat when they're on offense and the defense when they're on defense as if the crowd is chanting. And I don't know that I saw that from other teams so far. Maybe I just absentmindedly missed it, but that was something that I picked up on that I didn't see in the earlier games.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of hokey, but
Yeah. I wonder if they're just trying to replicate the in-game, in-arena experience as much as possible, not thinking that it's going to be consequential to the results, but just trying to make it as comfortable as possible. I don't know. It's just
they throw Crazy Andy on there and Uptown Dale, and we'll know. I think they are trying to do certain things, and I get it. I just think ultimately, there are certain players that feed off crowds. To me, Bron has always been one of them. And I think that's going to be an interesting experience for him. And the other thing I think that's going to be interesting for LeBron is that LeBron always cares about, and I don't say this in a mean-spirited way, it's just who he is. He cares about how he's perceived every second of his life. And I'm just wondering if he's going to change behavior at all on the court and act out more, okay, because he knows everybody's watching. And we just saw the Jordan doc with Last Dance, and everybody's going to be able to hear LeBron now. And I almost feel like he's going to exaggerate things.
Yeah, like overcompensate for the fact that
overcompensate, right? Because, so that it comes off as he's even more of a leader. I am curious to see how certain guys react to this circumstance. As time goes on, because now there's the NBA junkies are watching this stuff the next week and a half, but the casuals are going to start coming back.
Yep.
Very soon. And it is going to be curious to see how players react to that. So.
Emmanuel Chang here says, how about the Heat Nation fan Zoom video? Amazing stuff. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, that's Manny. Manny throws it in there. Yeah, that was cool. Like I said, I've been to, I think every arena now. I don't think there's one I haven't been to. I don't think there's been a new one since I stopped traveling regularly. And, there is no organization that goes all out like the Heat. There just isn't. There are some others who try, and then they do stupid shit like, Cleveland. I think I was one of the people who reported their domestic violence video when I was up there. But the Heat typically they don't mess that kind of stuff up. So, they have a very creative group that puts this stuff together. And like I said, I think the players do appreciate it. I think that the room, kind of the break room that they created, which Goran said the other players are checking out.
Yeah, with the family stuff.
With the family stuff is a very Heat move. And I can tell you, other organizations don't do a lot of that stuff. A lot of them really don't. I've been around a lot of them, and there are very few. I think Toronto is one. There are a handful, that really put effort into sort of the sideline type stuff. But the Heat's definitely one of them. So.
Cleveland is not one of them, and neither is New York.
They don't do it well. I'll say they try it. The Knicks don't do it well either. Not that
the Knicks don't do a lot of things well, Ethan. But
they do nothing well. Let's clarify that.
The first half is almost over. What are you guys' takeaways from this first half? Are you guys happy with whatever you guys are watching from the Heat, or so?
It's interesting to me if you look who's played, who hasn't. The Dragic and Jimmy have gotten this second stint now. And Duncan Robinson coming back in. So he's really played the core 10 or the core 9, right? Is it 9 or 10? He's played because no Bam and no Nunn. So he's
and we haven't seen KZ, and we haven't seen Gabe Vincent.
We haven't seen KZ. We haven't seen Gabe. We haven't seen Silva. We haven't seen obviously Haslam. So he's played the core 9, and Andre has played a lot of minutes. And I'm also watching like Andre just pushed DJJ in the back to get to the right place. But I'm looking at this lineup. Okay?
Yeah, Andrews played more than 10 minutes. The same with Tyler Hero, and the next one would be Jade Crowder with almost 9 minutes so far.
Well, and look at the group on the floor right now. Okay, it's Dragic and 4 premium defenders. It's Dragic, DJJ, Jimmy, Jay, and Andre.
Yeah.
Again, we've talked about this. I think Duncan's set to check back in, but there's going to be a lot of lineups where Eric's going to try to squeeze 3 or 4 of their better defenders out there at the same time, and count on the fact that Jimmy, Andre, and Jay can play together and with Derek and switch everything. But like I'm saying, whether he can stay with that comes down to which of those guys, Jay, DJJ, because it's not going to be Jimmy, Jay, DJJ, or Andre can make that corner 3. That's going to determine it. They just Manny just put that up. That lineup is interesting. No Bam, obviously, no Hero, no Robinson. So you've taken out, your 2 of your better shooters there. But can you get enough shooting? Now he's replaced. Now he's put Robinson back on the floor and taken Andre out. So he's added another shooter.
Still a really interesting. I mean, who do you call the 5 in this lineup? Is it Jay Crowder? Is it DJJ? It's like funny. I guess we don't even really need to think in those terms anymore, which
No,
to your point, we've talked about this in the pod that like maybe it becomes like you just put 5 gazelles out there and it's not necessarily about positions at all.
no, it's not. That's what I said. And that's what we said yesterday on the pod is that I feel like, the team I was thinking about, and this may be a little before your time, Greg, I was trying to think of the college team that used to just throw bodies at you. It was Nolan Richardson's Arkansas. It was
with Corliss Williamson.
Corliss Williamson team. So they had legitimate stars. They had him and a couple, but they just would roll like 10, 11 guys. And it was like nobody really played more than, a college game's 40 minutes like tonight's is. Nobody was really playing more than 25 minutes. And he's just rolling guys, 4, 5, 6-minute shifts. And a lot of college teams, UNLV and others adopted. Now, DJJ takes a 3 and makes it. Again, makes that shot, stays on the court. And he had a little bounce after making that shot, too, because I think he knows that's what keeps him on the court. And Jimmy just got to the baskets. Miami's looking pretty good right now. But yes. I do think it's this in waves, and I don't know that the positions are going to matter as much. I just don't. I think especially other teams are going to be shorthanded.
Well, and also like a big part of getting Iggy and Crowder and having them be rotation pieces is that they just further exemplify this. We're going to get a bunch of guys that are 6'6" to 6'9", and we're just going to, like have the length to switch and play different combinations. And then if you get Iguodala able to initiate any level of offense, then that's an additional thing that he brings to the table. So I think that they're primed to kind of play this way. It'll be interesting when you've got Bam, back, because obviously he's going to take up a big part of the minutes. But, I've liked what I've seen from them so far. I don't think that there could be any complaints necessarily, other than obviously we want to see everyone back as soon as possible.
Well, nobody looks out of shape. But the other point on this, when you say who's the 5, I mean, the reality is putting Kelly Olynyk in, and I like Kelly and a lot of what he brings, but is putting Kelly Olynyk in the game instead of, say, Jay Crowder or DJJ at the 5 make you better in terms of your rim protection? No. Does it make you better in terms of your rebounding? No.
Yeah.
So really, this idea that you have to have a guy who's 6'11" or taller just to have him,
it doesn't make sense.
That guy is not providing 6'11" things.
Yeah, because if you get better anticipation from Crowder, Iguodala, or DJJ, that anticipation in itself can be better than what Kelly's going to provide if he has, a line at the basket. So,
right. I mean, I just watched DJJ just swallowed Buddy Hield whole, on the perimeter in that 3-point attempt. And again, it's just length. It's just they're throwing so much length at you. I mean, and even you don't think of Duncan Robinson as a guy with length. But I mean, he's kind of a 6'3" shooter and a 6'8" body. Like, they just, I mean, they're kind of, they can kind of be a big team even without having, a traditional center on the floor all the time. I mean, Jay Crowder's hands he just created a blown possession for the Kings. I'm just watching activity. And their activity tonight's been excellent. And then Dragic just gets to the line, makes a run.
They're getting to the line now. Here we go. Yeah. This is the recipe.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of smiles. I mean, this is, again, Kings are not a premium. Dragic and Jimmy are joking on the court now. This is not a premium opponent when they're healthy. They're not healthy, and I'm talking about the Kings. But even with that said, I think this first half is pretty much what you wanted.
The Kings just had someone check in who does not appear to be in shape. And I do not know who he is, but he is right underneath the basket right now.
Who's that?
Number 88. He just does not appear to be in the same shape as the Heat players. That's all I'll say.
Trying to figure out how deep they've gone to the bench right now. Did you see that last comment, Alejandro? I was trying to catch it. It was something
this one right here. The ESPN one?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I mean, I know that ESPN seems like they bring Perkins to talk on ESPN always showed their level of stupidity, and then Jalen Rose basically saying the same idea, kind of whack.
Yeah, well, kind of whack. Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand the Kendrick Perkins phenomenon. I'll say suddenly he's become a big Heat guy. I don't. ESPN has been trying to replicate Charles Barkley for 15 years.
Hit the nail on the head.
And there is none. Okay. If ESPN was smart, and honestly, and that's not a Heat Homer thing, they would go the intelligence route and hire Chris Bosh, or someone of that ilk, and be different.
CB and Dwayne.
Right. Well, Dwayne's doing TNT, but yeah, but I would. I mean, I consider Chris to be a better basketball analyst than Dwayne. I would bring Chris on there or somebody like that to talk basketball, but it's just like they just decided to go for a clown. And I know the Heat love aside, he's just not a good analyst.
No, I mean, some of the hot takes are just, you can tell that it's just to get reactions out of people. And, like Charles Barkley has carved out this niche where he can say completely ridiculous things that makes everybody really angry, but everybody wakes up the next morning and says, oh, it was just Chuck. We still love Chuck. But that same emotional connection, I don't even really know how to articulate it. Kendrick Perkins doesn't have that. And none of these other guys that they've tried to wheel in and out of there really have that either.
No, I mean, Paul Pierce, I mean, they went for the big star thing, but he doesn't. I mean, he says outrageous things that they're just dumb. Jimmy, they're showing the first. So basically, the end of the first half, I think we can give this.
Was Jimmy blowing kisses to the no fans?
Jimmy blowing kisses to no fans. I mean, they're showing the clip of Iguodala going baseline with no king challenging him. I mean, again, this is not the best opponent they're going to see, but I like a lot of what they did. So 56-44 in the first half. No Jimmy, no Dragic second half, which means you probably, you are going to see some Gabe Vincent,
some KZ.
You are going to see some probably KZ.
Udonis
probably fill those two roles. So,
well, I would say the one takeaway I'll have before I sign off here is that probably the player I thought I was most impressed by in that first half, other than Duncan Robinson shooting like crazy, is Andre Iguodala. I thought that was the guy who stood out to me for some of the intangible stuff, but also some of the super tangible things you could see really easily. So, good stuff.
Well, he's had 4 more months to get himself in shape, and he was working out his zone before he joined the Heat. But to me, the biggest thing with Iguodala is he's an intellectual. He's a high IQ guy, always has been. He's one of those players that can rub some people wrong because he has a little bit of a clubhouse lawyer reputation, kind of the same way that Ray Allen did. One of those guys who I think sometimes is perceived by teammates and others as a little too smart for his own good. But I do think, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, because I like the bright guys in the locker room, but sometimes it does rub others the wrong way. But I will say that having this much time to dive in to what the Heat do, and I've said this, and I don't want to ask these. I can't get Eric alone now because we're doing these group Zoom calls. But if I had a question to ask Eric alone, and maybe I will text it, is how much time has he spent just talking basketball with Andre during the break? I will bet you that he's done a lot of it. I will bet you that Andre they've been in each other's ears and been getting to know each other, because that's the kind of thing that Eric would spend the break doing. And it's the kind of thing that I think Andre would embrace. Andre is the type that, just like Jimmy challenges coaches from a work ethic perspective, Andre challenges them from an intelligence perspective. And so that, just a guess, but if I can ever get Eric, that's something I would ask.
Well,
so
you can text him that.
I'll text him.
Yes. So Alex is here. Greg wanted to say something before he left. So
yeah, no, I was just going to say that they mentioned on the broadcast that Andre Iguodala explicitly said that he was loving what he's seen from Tyler Hero and spending a ton of time mentoring him because he's destined for greatness. I think that was exactly how it was worded. And so that's another thing, like when we talk about guys and taking that leap, having Iguodala in Tyler Hero's corner, he's got Jimmy and Iggy kind of raising him. That's not a bad group.
No, and Myers has taken an interest in him too, and obviously UD has kind of taken Bam under his wing. All right, Alex, Greg, you can go. I'm not going to stick past a couple minutes of the halftime here too, because I want to prep for the pod. But Alex,
have you guys been going before halftime?
We've been going since
we've been 40 minutes here.
The first quarter.
Okay.
So you're good. No, this is a good format for you because you can pop in anytime.
Yes.
Just since you haven't been listening to us, I want fresh eyes on this stuff. What stuck out to you in the first half?
So I thought it was interesting that they started Goran. We talked about that. We know how Spo is. Sometimes he wants to kind of keep guys in their role. We know that Goran's been a sixth man. They started him, and then because of that, look who it is.
Yo, what's up, guys?
What's up?
All right.
Keep going, Alex. I'm sorry.
Keep going. We'll get to you in a second.
But because of that, because they started Goran, the bench lineup was a mess. And I mean, I guess that's why they kept Kelly there off the bench, because they kind of needed somebody who can replicate some of the Bam, facilitating from the elbow stuff. But the bench lineup, the bench offense was very messy. And I mean, what are you going to expect from Hero, first time running point guard, and Iguodala bringing the ball up the floor? It's not how they usually run things. But other than that, like I'm glad to see that they're kind of running different things. Like we saw the 2-3, we saw them switch for a little bit, and passing the ball a lot. They're taking a lot of threes. Spo knows how good this team is at 3-point shooting, and they're keeping that going. They ended up taking like 23 attempts just in the first half. But I'm not surprised, because without Bam, like, what are you going to do? They got to just keep passing the ball around, keep setting up, Jimmy keep driving and setting up shooters. Without Bam there, I think it's going to be most of the offense.
Well, and you saw the offense kind of settle down when Goran and Jimmy came back. So, yeah, I mean, they know that when Goran's not on the floor without none and without Bam as another ball handler, that sometimes ball handling, I think a couple things just to share with you both, kind of what Greg and I picked up. To me, the biggest things were, they look to be in good shape. Okay, I don't see anybody on the court who looks out of shape to me. A couple of the Kings players maybe did. I don't think any of the Heat guys did. I think the second thing is, in terms of the ball movement, I mean, the shooting's not going to go away, but just Duncan Robinson, and Tyler Hero launching is kind of what you wanted to see, that there was no break from that. But
Hero can't get a good look.
Yeah, well, the other thing that stuck out to me was, and I will talk about this more on the pod tonight, Iguodala hit a corner three, DJJ hit a straightaway three, and I do think you saw them all three play together. Him, Jay, Andre, Jay, and
Solomon.
DJJ all playing together.
And then we saw the same thing again with Solomon Hill.
And the same thing with Solomon, and with Jimmy out there too. And to me, that Eric's going to make that decision on who stays out there based on who can make that open three. That's all they have to do.
And you saw Derek. You saw Derek hit that shot.
Derek, dude, I'm telling you, his shot is coming along.
Hi, Kylie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Alejandro?
Welcome to the party.
Hi, guys.
But I mean,
I'm excited about Derek. I hope he stays.
That shot was looking good. I don't know. I thought it came off his hands really nice. I don't know.
I'm like losing my mind over here.
Well, Kylie, just for a second, because again, we've kind of had Greg's perspective, Alex's perspective. What else did you take away from the first half?
Honestly, I think defense and I think like half court offense, like a little iffy, but I liked the threes, obviously. And I feel like the cohesion was a little bit better, especially on the first line, and I really liked seeing I think we had what we had on the first line was like Myers and Derek and Jimmy and all these guys are out there and they were just Duncan, obviously just like shooting them down. Like the man couldn't miss in like that first quarter. It was amazing. And I really like to see that. I like to see the young guys. I think that's really important. I know one of the things that I like best on like sports teams, like the combination that I look for is to have those veterans and the young guys, because I want young guys to learn from the veterans so that we can create a core of young guys that will move up and then hopefully continue on in that organization. And that's something that I think that the Heat really have. And that's something that I looked for previously, and not to bring it into hockey, but the Florida Panthers had that at some point, and that was when they were really good. And that's something that a Heat usually have and continue to have. And especially with this team right now, they have, and it's so amazing. It's such a good team to have.
Well, that's one of the points I made about the bubble is that, and I think people who listen to the podcast are kind of tired of listening to me about this, but I was looking at some of the rosters today to see what teams had a mix of vets and young guys, like had that kind of feel, because I feel like the teams that are too veteran heavy are going to take a long time to get back in the kind of shape they need to get into. The teams that are too young, I think in this environment, if they don't have veteran leadership, I think are going to have some problems. So you look at some of these teams. Milwaukee has a lot of vets. I have made the case that as well as they were playing, that they're going to come back to the pack, because I think some of those guys the Lopez's, Korver, Ilyasova, some of their George Hill. I think there's going to be some injuries. I think there's going to be some vets who struggle to get back into the kind of shape that they were in before, when they sort of worked their way into this over the course of 3-4 months. Then I look at a team like Boston, and I wonder a little bit, is there enough veteran leadership on that team? They're counting a lot on Tatum, on Brown. I don't know where Hayward's role is as a leader on that team. He's kind of, obviously he's had to work his way back. So I wonder a little about them. I do think that the Heat has kind of the right mix to that point. And I think your point about them organizationally, which is why I think they're so well set up for the future, is really going to play now. Like this is where that matters. And I think having just an all basketball environment for some of these guys, let's be straight. I think Tyler Hero probably right now could benefit from an all basketball environment. To just get back to just basketball after the past 4 months.
What are you trying to say, Ethan?
I just think he can benefit from an all basketball environment. I'm not going to begrudge his choices. It's a great choice.
You rather you play video games than do other things?
All basketball environment before he becomes East Coast Kuzma. I don't think that's a bad thing. Laker fans were getting on me today because there was that video of Dion, and J.R. Smith dancing. And I like tweaking Laker fans. So I just tweeted out, this team's not winning a title. I don't really mean that because a couple guys are dancing in practice, they're not going to win a title. But I do think that there may
I was going to say, we didn't say that when the Heat did the Harlem Shake.
No, we didn't.
That was a little better team, right?
Tyler has a lot more to offer than you're giving credit for, especially now in the bubble. I know we talked about this before, and I know you guys have talked about this on 5 on the Floor, but Tyler has this kind of experience that recently, and so does Duncan, so do the younger guys. So I actually think that we're kind of just as a whole, not necessarily within our network, but just as a whole, not giving these younger guys enough credit. I think they might actually be the guys who might pull this kind of win or this playoffs win or whatever out for these guys because they're used to this type of environment more recently than these veteran players.
No, I think that's true. And a couple of comments that came in about Kemba Walker, because that was the one guy that I'm holding out with Boston. It is true. Kemba had one of the great all-time collegiate runs. And so he showed leadership qualities. He has leadership qualities Kyrie Irving does not have. And that's why the Heat felt that it was actually a trade up for Boston to replace Kyrie with Kemba.
Got to watch out for Kemba. He's been going through some knee stuff. They keep reporting about that. But he has been going through
some knee stuff. And the reality is he's never won in the playoffs. It wasn't his fault, right? But he's never won in the playoffs. He played with trash in Charlotte. But he's never won anything.
They had a couple of decent runs. It's all right.
Don't talk about Josh McRoberts like that.
Yeah, come on. Look at that. Look at that team.
Big Al Jefferson.
That wasn't a very good team. But I'm looking at leadership from other teams. Houston. I guess Russ was back in the bubble today, or yesterday. So, we're gonna see how far Harden and he can go. Obviously, you've got Kawhi. Paul George has been kind of up and down in the playoffs over the course of his career. You've got LeBron leading a team of misfits, essentially. LeBron and AD leading a team of misfits. I just think what's happened here is that, I don't want to say flattened the curve because that's a COVID term, but I think that the circumstances have flattened what we saw in the regular season. And Stan Van Gundy talked about that on the podcast. He's on 5 on the Floor. He said, I don't really know what to expect, but I do expect the teams, that have good coaching and good leadership to be in good position. So Isaac's asked if we're going to do this all season. That's the plan until I pass out. That's why we're going to use a lot of different people. I want to get to just a more general topic here. Alex and I have been doing the pods pretty much 3 times a week for 4 months since it ended.
Three's on the low end.
But I'm just curious because I want to ask Kylie this question because I'm actually going to throw this one out on Twitter. Have you missed Alejandro? You also have you missed basketball more or less than you thought you would when you went into this? When we didn't know if there'd be a season again.
I personally, so not to I'll say this. I've missed other things more than I have missed basketball. But I don't think it's a knock on basketball. It's more of I really miss seeing people and the camaraderie of watching a basketball game together, right? So if
human connection.
watch party, like that would be really cool for me. And the fact that we're not, that I miss more than like just watching sports generally. I do, like, I'm a NFL girl, so if it were the NFL, I think that might be a little bit different. But that is like, that's not to say that I don't really miss it. And it's been so nice to see it and to have live sports.
Well,
Right. I mean, I've been watching a lot of MLS.
Do you guys have the
Yeah.
broadcast on right now?
yes.
Yeah.
on
You
the
see
back.
Crotty and Eric Reed social distance from each other at the arena.
No, it is kind. I mean, do we
They're
really
at the
understand this
AAA?
part of it? Do we really understand? I guess. I mean, I get the social. You know, they don't have masks on. Obviously, they're not going to do this with masks. But I don't know. Again, I'm not going to. Anything you can do, any precautions you can take, I guess, are good. That one feels like a little over the top to me. I'm watching the. Did you see this? They just showed the Dragic shot with the screen of the fans in the background. It's got to be weird for you guys.
So I heard them talking about that on the broadcast. So that's already happening. They already got fans on a Zoom call. Like I feel like they didn't really advertise that. Like I feel like they would have been a bigger thing.
No, they do, and I just wonder from a shooting background standpoint. Like it's just weird. Like I don't know. I mean,
like, as the player. Oh, I see it now.
Player.
But is that like?
That's one of the questions I want to ask on the Zoom calls. Is that? I mean, I mean, instead of what you're used to looking at, because it does matter for players what they're usually looking at. The other thing it's going to take some time to get used to is seeing Eric not in a suit. He talked about that on the Zoom call. Like, it's just a different experience. Alejandro, okay.
Wait, one question. One question. The thing that we were just talking, the background with the fans, is that like B-roll from like old, like just random videos of fans in the crowd?
It's gotta be, right?
Okay, It's not like a live thing like the NFL was doing.
No.
No,
I was gonna say
they should do a 5 Reasons watch party. They should just like put us all back there.
Well, you know the Heat's gonna lose if we do that. So.
Well, that's true.
No, we would all lose our credentials. Is the problem?
we would. Drunk Alf would be there doing his eye test in the background. No, I mean when you're looking straight away, like I'm watching right now, Duncan Robinson take some free throws. Like you're looking straight away, it looks fairly normal. But then when they showed the clip of Dragic shooting into the Zoom feed of the fans,
that was the first time I saw it.
Is
there noise too?
The Heat are now up 15.
It's
all right,
crowd noise.
I'm gonna peace out. I'm gonna watch the game. I'll be on Twitter if anyone wants to hit me up at Kylie R. Wang. Bye, guys.
Bye, Kaylee.
Panthers to cover. Get to that.
Yeah. Go watch the Panthers.
So I'm watching it right now. You can see the fans in the background. You see it?
No, I don't. Let me see. Am I delayed?
It's on the side panel.
Oh, that's what that is in the back.
Are you guys watching the same
Oh,
channel?
yeah.
I'm watching the Fox. Yeah, they flip. It's the same fans. It's like it's interesting. I'll just put it that. It's interesting.
Pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, honestly, they did a pretty good job with the presentation. Like I thought it would really look presentation-wise like Orlando Summer League, very bland, very boring. Like you could kind of hear a lot of the shoes squeaking. But this looks really professional, like all the technology and the screens. You can kind of adjust it depending on who's playing. And this stuff it looks pretty nice. They got the plexiglass.
It's funny you mentioned that because before you came on, Orlando Summer League is what I compared it to more so than Vegas. I mean, you've been to the one in Vegas. I mean, this doesn't really compare to Vegas because Thomas and Mack is such a big arena. Yeah. And with so many fans. Who's wearing 88 for the Kings, by the way? Should I know that?
That's Bielitsa.
Oh, it's Bjelica. Okay.
Bjelica.
That's how I pronounce it. That's how I pronounce it.
Bjelica is funny.
I have another important question. Did Eric color his hair during the break?
Oh, wow. I mean, you're the one that's cool with him.
You can text him that question.
Are you going to ask him that in the post game?
I might text it. Because I thought he was going a little bit gray up top.
Right.
And I don't see any gray anymore.
He looks like
you see the Heat thing there, the most professional, unselfish, that they got all that stuff.
Yeah, they do.
All the branding.
All the propaganda.
Manny says yes.
Yes, he did, right? He colored his hair. It's jet black again. It wasn't jet black.
Gabe Vincent still hasn't played, I think, right?
No, not yet.
No, Vincent has not played. I'm guessing he'll get in the rotation here. So they started.
Oh.
He started with Iguodala instead of Jimmy, right? And then instead of Goran, he started Hero. So that's, I mean, pretty much expected. I wouldn't be surprised if Goran gets a scrimmage game off also.
Yeah.
Just to kind of preserve him.
Well, there are 3 days in between the games for the scrimmages. I mean,
no. Tyler Hero has not been shy. I'm fine with the looks he's getting. I mean,
that crossover and the step back is looking pretty lethal though. Like he's obviously not an on-ball guy yet, but
right.
the crossover, he's gotten people like off of him 2 or 3 times already just in this game, just using that crossover.
Well, that's the thing about him that I think is highly underrated is his ability to shake defenders. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think that's something we necessarily assume. I want to ask you one thing I talked to Greg about, and I may piece out of here in a second because I want to get ready for the pod and watch the rest of this. But one thing I talked to Greg about is, at one point they had a lineup with no center, where they were using Jay.
Derek at the 5?
Yeah, Derek at the 5 with Jay and Andre, Jimmy, and Dragic. And my point was, and again, when you get Bam back, things look different, but you don't necessarily get smaller just because you do that, because Kelly doesn't really provide the rebounding and shot blocking anyway. So it doesn't really make you the idea just to have a 7-footer or a 6'11" guy in there, just to have him. I don't think Eric's going to be wed to that. I really don't.
I mean, Kelly, honestly, his whole value at this point that really separates him from Myers is just using him as a facilitator at the top of the elbows, because I think that's really his biggest value, and obviously, just 3-point shooting in general. But if they already got playmakers on there, I feel like Spo is going to keep bringing Kelly off the bench to really help with the playmaking there, because it doesn't really make sense to play them with Jimmy and Goran.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
When you're missing Nunn and Bam, I mean.
And Nunn and Bam, right. And the other thing I've kind of noticed, we talked a lot about, was Andre's a secondary ball handler. Duncan, again, shakes the defender and gets a 3. I will say this about Duncan. The thing that changed about him starting in about January is when he doesn't have the first look, putting the ball on the floor with the one dribble and shooting anyway.
Yeah.
He was not doing that in October and November. And that has become basically a staple of what he does. So
I got to tell you, I can't wait for when this team is back to being full and complete, because I really want to see, they've been playing Tyler and Duncan together, and I want to see Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Duncan out there together, and then the 5th guy can be whoever, an Iguodala or Crowder. But I really want to see that look, because I think that can be a dangerous core 4 going forward, right? Just Jimmy, Bam, Duncan, and Hero with somebody else there. I really like the sound of that.
Well, I think that's going to be their late game. I mean, I think those 4 are going to be on the floor. I think that. I
would bet those being their 4 biggest closers, right?
Well, yeah, Hero led them in the minutes. So then the 5th guy becomes, Dragic at times, becomes DJJ at times, becomes Andre probably more than we're sort of saying right now. It could become
Crowder
Jay.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 5th guy can be rotated, but I do think that, unless Tyler Hero shows a ton of rust, I think he's going to be one of those guys. I mean, the minutes spoke for themselves. Eric always speaks with minutes. And, if you look at the minutes that Justice Winslow, we've talked about this, used to play, you knew that Justice was going to be on the floor kind of regardless of how he was playing that night. I feel like we're going to get there with Tyler Hero. All right, we're at an hour. I think that's a good start for tonight. We're going to do this some more.
Yeah, especially during the season.
Yeah, we'll rotate in more people. We'll get Drunk Alf on here at times. But thanks to Greg for joining us. Thanks to Kylie for joining us.
Virtual watch parties coming soon?
Yeah, we're doing this. We're doing this during the game so we can talk to the Heat fans during the game and not just wait after the game, and then we can do this all the time. So yes, we're doing this very often. So you guys remember to subscribe to our channel, turn on the notifications so you guys get the alert whenever we go live.
Yep, and we got a new show. Janelle Moore on our network has a new show. I Got More. It's going to be out on Thursday, so that's tomorrow morning, and then we'll have a podcast tonight and Florida.
She does NBA talk, right? She's going to do like an NBA thing.
She's doing general. People are asking why KZ's not in. I think KZ's going to get 4th quarter minutes tonight, so he will be in soon.
Very preseason vibes here, right?
We will evaluate those later. We'll evaluate those on 5 on the floor. So check that out later. I'm taking a break. Thanks, Regina. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll take more. We want this to be a forum where we take your questions.
Yes.
What the hell is that shirt?
You like it?
We don't sell that 105reasonsports.com. I only pay attention to those. All right.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.